Hey there, welcome to episode 51 of Social Business Engine, the podcast that showcases industry thought leaders that represent modern business in action through the culture and technology of social. I'm your host, Bernie Borges of Find and Convert. Hey, thanks for listening. On this episode, you're going to meet Ryan Pena. Ryan runs social media for Capella University. Among his social business accomplishments that you'll hear about is the launch of a private online community for students to meet and connect. And this community has more than 16,000 students in it. Now, this episode is sponsored by Cision. Cision is widely recognized as a leading provider of software used by public relations professionals to plan, execute, and measure influencer-oriented campaigns in one integrated platform. We're partnering with Cision to publish Social Business Journal Volume 2, a how-to guide in influencer relations. Just visit socialbusinessengine.com/Cision, spelled C-I-S-I-O-N, and download this journal and up your influencer marketing game in 2015. And now, here's my interview with Ryan Pena. Ryan, welcome to the Social Business Engine podcast.
Thank you, Bernie. I appreciate you having me. It's an honor.
Terrific. Well, Ryan, you and I had the privilege of meeting not long ago at the Social Media Strategy Summit in Las Vegas. Love the T-shirt you were wearing. Maybe more on that later. But why don't we begin first? Really want to talk about this online community that you've built. I think it's a great success story. That's why it's a big reason I invited you on the podcast. But for those that may not be familiar with Capella University, why don't we give them an introduction to Capella first?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Bernie. So, yes, I work at Capella University. I've been with Capella for just about 5 years. And Capella University has been around for 21 years, and Capella is a 100% online university. So back 21 years ago, in about 93, 94, Capella was founded, and it was based off of the internet, which people didn't really know what that was at the time. But our founders really saw a vision there for helping adult learners, adult students that want to achieve more in their professional background, but just don't have the ability to adhere to being in a classroom setting at a set time during the week. They have families, they're working full time. So we utilized the technology back then, the internet, that was pretty unknown. And since then, we've grown to a fairly large global online university with several programs all over the place. But we're really excited about our continued innovation in 21 years this year. And the past couple of years, we've been talking about some exciting competency-based approaches to education called FlexPath. And but I work for them, and it's a fun job because of my role as a social media specialist. I get to make sure that our students can connect with each other, and that they can be organic advocates for our brand and sharing their story, which is exciting to be a part of that.
So that's a really interesting history. 21 years ago, when the internet was just in its infancy. Just mention a little bit briefly, because we were talking before we recorded, that in your role you also travel. So in addition to social media, you do have some flesh-to-flesh kind of responsibilities, right? Yeah,
and it's I kind of get some confused looks when people find that I travel when I'm a social media specialist, because right, everything I do should just be on the internet, right? But
right.
But I find that in my role, and just in any role, whether we're an online institute or a land-based institute, it's important that we never lose focus of what the most beneficial form of communication is, which is face-to-face interaction. And so any opportunity that I can have to better understand our students, better understand our university, I'm definitely going to do that. So I travel to commencements. We do have a couple commencements each year at different locations to bring in learners that are graduating and from different programs. And I cover those on social media, so that way future students or current students that are still in programs can see the end result and see other students accomplishing their goals and dreams. So I cover that on social media, in the community, and publicly as well. And then there's also areas where we let people know about our programs. So we go to conferences, nursing conferences, ed conferences, things that relate to programs that we offer, and we have a booth there. But we also try to have some fun at those booths and bring a social media campaign to those booths and have anyone walking by participate and share their vision for the industry and understand Capella more that way. So I love the opportunity to travel. There's also dissertation retreats where some of our PhD and master students have to meet up for a weekend with their faculty, and I go to those here and there, sit down and talk to students, record videos with them, testimonials, and really just get to understand what they need to feel more connected to their school, what they need to feel more connected to each other. And then I come back into the office and work with our amazing team here to create magic.
Okay, well, let's talk about some of that magic, because I'm glad you shared that aspect of your role, because as you pointed out, Ryan, when you think of someone running social media, you think of them sitting at a keyboard all day and maybe some mobile activity as well. But so let's talk about this private community. First of all, it is a private community, right? So first, I want to go back to the beginning, and I don't mean the beginning of time for Capella University, but the beginning of the idea of the online community. So what was the strategy behind it, and how is it sold internally to actually do it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm sure most people listening would assume that this is not an easy thing to just launch in an organization, and it wasn't, and it shouldn't have been. There's a lot of questions and wanting to understand more, and so it took a while, but there was a good set path. So I would say the journey was just under 2 years. It started really when I started my social media role at Capella, which was about 3 years ago. I started my role to really provide social media as another form of communication for our students with us, with our staff. And so when we implemented that 3 years ago, one thing we found was, okay, this is great. We have a way to communicate with them, but they don't have a way to communicate with each other, or really an effective way to communicate with each other. So we've had taken some stabs at setting up a community within our online student portal, our online campus, and it's effective in certain ways, but it's just not where a lot of people were going to connect with each other and have really more personable conversations about themselves as a student to student, kind of like what you would see in a traditional land-based brick and mortar school, where you can sit down in the commons and get to know your fellow colleagues. So that vision was there, and started digging around, and I think it's important for any organization, before you really start picking products, potential solutions, out-of-the-box solutions, or if you're going to look to develop your own, to truly understand your audience and your organization.
Mm-hmm.
Because, for example, if I was to launch a community for an online school, that wasn't Capella, and it was a more traditional school, straight out of high school, students would be 19, 20 years of age, I would not look for a product that integrated with Facebook, because that's not where those younger generation students are going these days. They're going to more quick-hitting Instagram, Snapchat type of platforms.
Mm-hmm.
But, our students, our average student is 39, 40 years of age. They're adult learners. They have work experience. They've been in the industry for many years. They're more invested in platforms like Facebook primarily. So we knew we needed to find something that not only somehow integrated with Facebook, but also, provided a similar type of environment, so there wouldn't be a learning curve on how to use a community.
Right.
So at the end of the day, that was the mission. So fortunately, found a company based out in San Francisco, and they created community products, social media products that integrate with our database. So it syncs with our student database, knows who should have access, who shouldn't. And on top of that is it integrates with Facebook, and there's a mobile platform. So the user experience, the student experience, is going to be very similar to what they experience in their personal Facebook pages. So
Brian,
that was the first, to answer your question, that was the first big win, because when we found this product, we were able to go back to the C-suite executives, C-level executives, and say to them, here's a product that will meet our learners, our students, where they're at. And that is the key one-liner, meeting our students where they're at.
Right, but did the C-suite ask you the ROI question? How are we going to,
of course,
measure results and get results that we can measure?
Yeah, of course. And fortunately, with the demo that I got, they were very very clear about the amount of analytics, which was another big win of this particular product.
Mm-hmm.
So, analytics will show, how engaged our students are in the community, how the adoption looks. So when they asked for ROI, I had to be clear that, initial ROI, it's going to be in stages. The first set of ROI is going to be more along the lines of growth. If you build it, will they come? We're hypothesizing based on knowing where our students communicate currently. The age, that's a very popular age demographic for Facebook. And then the product is zero learning curve almost. That first set of ROI stats are going to be around adoption rate.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some goals that we gave them. Fortunately, we were able to exceed those goals when we launched. But that was the initial one. Then after that, if we see strong adoption rate, we should expect that ROI will show improved student experience. That they're having a better experience at Capella in addition to their academic journey, that they're feeling more connected to their university, that they're persisting through their program, mainly finding the encouragement for other students to continue on their journey to overcome obstacles and barriers from each other and supporting each other. And that's something that, we know it's happening. We've seen that happen, but from a data standpoint, we just need time because it's only been just over a year since we launched this new community.
Okay. All right. I'd like to talk about the journey a little bit more in terms of lessons learned and maybe some of the obstacles you've had to overcome and that kind of thing. But first, let me just pause briefly for a message from our sponsor, Cision. Cision is widely recognized as a leader in public relations software, and we're excited to partner with Cision in Volume 2 of the Social Business Journal. In this how-to guide in influencer marketing, you'll hear from business experts on everything from what an ideal influencer looks like to the secret sauce of penetrating the sphere of an influencer. Contributors to this journal include experts such as Likeable Local's Dave Kerpen, LinkedIn's Jason Miller, HubSpot's Joe Chernoff and Laura Fitton, Forbes Top 100 influencer Ted Koine, Salesforce's Jeff Roars, SAP's Nick Robinson, and the Beancast's Bob Norp, as well as other experts whose insights will give you actionable takeaways for your influencer relations strategy. Hey, to download this special and free edition of the Social Business Journal, just go to socialbusinessengine.com/Cision, and again, that's spelled Cision. So, Ryan, let's give our listeners a little bit of insight into lessons learned. If you were doing it all over again, is there anything you might do differently? Or are there any tidbits that you can just share on that journey?
Well, yeah, I definitely, this has been a very big success for myself personally, the team that I work with in Capella, and our students. But just like anything, I think there's always opportunity to improve. Nothing can ever be done perfectly.
You mean you didn't get to 16,000 students in like 2 weeks?
No, we didn't. I was gonna say too, like even my, I try to convince my wife all the time that I'm perfect, but she doesn't buy it either. So with all that being said, there's always things that I would do differently. I think, getting back to the C-level executives, I didn't approach them initially in the kind of opening the door and bringing this product to Capella and kind of the proposals. And I wonder, I feel like that could have maybe sped things up a little bit because I went to more of direct leadership that I work with, wanted to make sure their buy-in was there, and they understand the value of social, they understand the importance of doing this, so there was really no pushback there. So I think looking back, I should know my audience more and have gotten to the C-level executives sooner, because at the end of the day, if we could have launched a community sooner than January of last year, we would have obviously had more people in the community now and have gotten more people involved earlier on. But so kind of that 2-year window of just digging in and presenting and brainstorming, I would love to have seen that get smaller and smaller, but the great thing about our organization is we're very innovative. So we're always changing, evolving, because we want to make sure that the experience for our students is always the best that it can be for an online university. And so they're willing to hear very innovative approaches. But, like you hear in a lot of your podcasts and conversations, social media is it's still somewhat of an unknown territory. So it needs a little bit more explaining, a little bit more of an understanding. But when I just say, hey, we have to meet our students where they're at, and they need a sense of community to connect with each other and feel more like they're not just sitting at their home by themselves on their computer, like they're part of a bigger purpose. And they are, but they needed to see that for themselves by having a sense of community.
Right. It's perfectly logical. To your whole point, Ryan, about, if I'm attending Capella University, I'm doing that online. So I'm not physically going to a building where I'm going to be physically surrounded by other people, other students. Right. And I did some of my university schooling at night as well, but it was physical. It was in the classroom. So I can only think logically about the value of being a member in the community at the university that you're attending online. So love that. Now, you also mentioned something I want to elaborate on a little bit, and that is that you're innovative. And I know that you told me that one of the aspects of your job, your responsibility at Capella University, is to kind of explore new ways to connect and educate these adult learners through online education and through social media. So is there anything that you can share there in terms of things that you're learning, looking at, exploring, etc.?
Well, there's a lot, and this definitely would make an all-day podcast, which I don't know if that would break a record or something, but
it would.
But some of, I think two of the
never
key
done
ones,
an all-day podcast.
I don't think anyone wants to do that, so I don't blame you. But I think two of the big ones outside of the community, like I said in the beginning of our chat, we first established the ability to implement social media as a form of communication with our students, with people that are coming to Capella. We were able to have essentially 100+ staff members with social as a tool in their tool belt of communication methods: phone, email, chat, social, to be able to meet students where they're at and communicate with them, because they are working, they are busy, and sometimes jumping on Facebook or social media is faster than or easier than having to pick up the phone or answer a call. So that was a big win, and we're still doing that, and it's been a wonderful thing to see that unfold and really provide value for our students. But the other one is really along the lines of innovation, because this is a very different way of thinking about how we do business as an organization and how a lot of organizations do business. So I said I attend conferences throughout the year, and I was at a conference May last year. Before I go to these conferences, because I am in this profession of social media, I was doing some listening on Twitter and seeing who was talking about going to that conference. I established some relationships via Twitter.
Before the conference?
Yeah, before the conference.
Okay.
And these were just, I'm going to the conference, it's my first time, what should I expect? And these are people that are going because they're in that industry. I'm going because I'm going to be partnering with Capella and having a booth there to talk about our programs. So we just, take a soft approach with it and develop relationships with these people. And once I get to the conference, I follow up with them because I made a list of all the people I've had conversations with, and we end up meeting up. Like, they'll come to the booth because they want to meet with this person they've been kind of tweeting with and get to know. And I'm truthful. I'm there to cover the event on social. And so anyway, I met someone that was very influential on social in her industry, and she was anonymous out there to kind of protect herself from the industry, and but at the same time, she had a big following because she shared kind of real world life of what she does in her profession. And so she was anonymous, but she came to the booth, found me, and introduced herself. Said, "I'm this handle on Twitter," and it was fantastic. We actually hugged because we felt like we knew each other from our tweets before. We were so excited to meet. And so the story can be very long, but I'll try to shorten it here. Basically, I kept in touch with this individual outside of the conference. I thought that this person was a very good thought leader, and I loved the possibility that could tie with Capella. We're definitely a thought leader in education. We're very innovative in education, but this person is innovative in her industry. So I asked her if she would want to speak at a conference later in the year, and she declined because she was anonymous at the time. But I didn't stop there. I tweeted back and said, "Who else do you know?" And I was so happy I did that because she connected me with another person in the industry that's actually a star of a major TV network show and very well known on social media as well. And we ended up getting that person through Twitter. I initially reached out to her, had some direct messages, got on the phone, got her in touch with our marketing department to pitch this idea. And she spoke at our conference, or at a conference we attended later in the year. It was a huge hit because people relate to her and her profession. And then she tied in the importance of education to advance that profession, which is why we partnered with her. And now we're hoping to continue to partner with this individual throughout the year in 2015. So this all started with tweeting, going to some of my travels. So this was a very big eye-opening experience for our organization because, this wasn't going through, I'm not saying we do this, but, you kind of think of traditional, let's go through a list of people in the industry and call them, like basically cold call and see if anyone would be. We didn't do that. We established relationships with people that were connected with others and leveraged that, and it was all done through social.
There's a concept, Ryan, that I have been kind of tweeting up a little bit myself, and I've been sharing this concept, and it's the idea of being relevant in the moment. And I think your example actually is exemplary of that in a few ways. You were relevant in the moment before the conference. You were relevant in the moment at the conference. And then when she declined, you were relevant in the moment again by, as you say, you didn't stop there. And you asked, who do you know? And all of those in the moment relevant interactions and engagements had a positive, measurable business outcome. And it's fantastic. It's a great story, and I love hearing a story that involves the use of Twitter, because that is probably, from a public social media channel standpoint, one of the hardest social networks to actually measure outcomes from. So that's terrific. Hey, I'm watching our time, and what I want to do, Ryan, is I want to transition now to my one thing question. And you know, Ryan, that this is where I ask you if there is any one thing that you could change about the way that business is conducted today. What would that be?
It's a great question. And yes, there is something that, based on my experience, I've seen be immensely valuable because, fortunately, my organization is doing this. And that is taking risks. I want to see more organizations take risks. So, this is challenging I want to take a step back, because this is very challenging for a very well-respected institute like Capella University to do in some aspects, because we have very strong roots, and we have a very strong culture at Capella, and our students call us family, and it's an awesome thing. But so sometimes, when you think about making some big changes, you worry that that's going to change that vision of the organization. But it doesn't have to be like that, and that's what Capella does great. I want to see more organizations take risks because it's okay to fail. Risk is attributed with failure, but it's also attributed with wins. And Capella took a huge risk with me, honestly, and sourcing a potential speaker via Twitter. I mean, that doesn't sound normal in a business setting. But they took a risk with me because they know my passion for what I do. They know my passion for truly immersing myself with our students, with the industry, and just looking at things in a way that they don't typically look at. So that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I love working here with the 5 years I've been here, is because this organization takes risk. And the great thing about failure is we're open to it because we know we're going to learn more typically when we fail.
Right.
And if we fail fast. We sometimes fail hard. We fail fast so we can do the right things to make it better. So, customer service. We strive to provide a really strong, really supportive academic experience, but nothing's perfect. So if we ever have a situation where it's not a good experience, we want to jump on that. We want to learn from that specific student or faculty and learn from it and grow from it. So risk is a big one, and it's not only attributable to social, obviously.
Right. Well, that's terrific. I love that, and I agree. I mean, obviously, anything in business involves some level of risk. I can only imagine the initial conversations by the founders of Capella University in the early 90s about starting an online university. I mean, talk about risk.
Yeah, I mean, you had Katie Couric and Brian Gumbel on TV in '93 or so talking about they were confused. What's this internet? What's this? What's this @ sign, ampersand? What is that? What is the internet?
Yeah.
When we're launching a university online during that. So.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Well, Ryan, before we sign off here, where can people learn more about what you're doing at Capella University and perhaps connect with you online?
Yeah, good question. So probably the most public-facing channel you can find me is obviously Twitter, and that's my first and last name, Ryan Pena Ed for education. So at Ryan Pena Ed. But, I'm kind of everywhere. I'm always immersing myself in all the social channels.
Gee, what a surprise.
Yeah, so basically if you Google me, just Google my name, you'll find all my channels. And I have no shame in saying that I check that out from time to time to make sure my SEO is optimized. It is. So I'm pretty active out there, and I love connecting with like-minded individuals. So.
Cool. Well, Ryan, my listeners know that I will have a link to your Twitter handle and, of course, to Capella University in the show notes page at socialbusinessengine.com. And I really want to thank you for taking the time to be here today, sharing your story, the journey that you're on at Capella. It's a fantastic story. You've got a lot to be proud of, and really grateful that you took the time to share it with my listeners here today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Bernie. And I appreciate, you giving me this stage to share my story, and I hope it inspires others, but I also want to continue to learn. So definitely, anyone that's listening to this podcast, connect with me. Let's share stories, ideas. And thank you, Bernie, for giving me this platform. You have a really awesome podcast and site going on, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
Terrific. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed hearing from Ryan Pena of Capella University as much as I enjoyed speaking with him. I'll have links in the show notes to everything we discussed at socialbusinessengine.com. And while you're there, visit our video channel where you can catch interviews with other inspiring business professionals that are succeeding in modern business through social. If you're active on Twitter or Google Plus or Instagram, be sure to follow our hashtag SBE Show. And lastly, if you enjoy this podcast, I would be very grateful if you'd write a review in iTunes. To make that easy, we have a page set up at socialbusinessengine.com/iTunes that links directly to this podcast in iTunes. Until next time, this is Bernie Borges of Find and Convert, wishing you continued success on your social business journey.